What else, guys? What's going on? Welcome to the statement. We back here with another episode, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the AFC East, and honestly, why I feel like it's probably one of the toughest divisions in football right now. Now, every single year, we're going to go ahead and try to crown a new division of who's like the toughest. For the longest, it was like the NFC West because you had like Seattle in their prime days. You had the Rams who were, going crazy, or the Cardinals who were going crazy. And then, of course, the Niners. They've always been the Niners, especially ever since, Kyle Shanahan has been there, leading the ship. But this year, I'm honestly going to go ahead and say the AFC East, because when you look at it from top to bottom, since the AFC West last year didn't do as well as expected, I'm going to put the AFC East now with the crown title of the toughest division in football. And when you think about it too, arguably two of the top 5, top 6, top 7 QBs in all of football are right there in division. And then you have two other Pro Bowl QBs in Tua Tagovailoa and Mac Jones who are in that division. And when you have quarterbacks 1 through 4 all being viable QBs, they're not scrubs besides Mac Jones. And when you have that division spearheaded by Josh Allen and now Aaron Rodgers, that is going to go ahead and put some huge weight onto, the division. And not even just that, but like when you look at some of the teams, especially the Bills and the Jets, from top to bottom, like those rosters are absolutely loaded. Especially, with the Bills next year, they're going to get Von Miller, back and healthy. And now the Jets, having Aaron Rodgers, bringing in Allen Lazard, bringing in Randall Cobb, going ahead and having hopefully another, huge season by Sauce and Garrett Wilson, you're going ahead and looking at that division, and you're just like, fuck, like they're scary. And I think on top of it too, even the worst teams in that division, still are some of the best coached, because you have Mike McDaniels and Bill Belichick on the two teams in that division who are a little bit on the sketchier side compared to the Jets and the Bills. And like the Jets last year were honestly a laughingstock, but now, of course, you got Aaron Rodgers. Robert Saleh is getting even more comfortable with that franchise, and the players are leaning into, his coaching and his teaching even more so. So it's kind of one of those things now where you're just looking at from the division, top to bottom, every team has a bunch of strengths added to them and a lot of like reliability. Like, what you're getting out of a Bill Belichick, coach team, especially on the defensive side of the football. And on top of it, now they have a legitimate offensive coordinator in Bill O'Brien instead of, Matt Patricia going ahead and leaving that. But so you have that. And then you got Sean McDermott, who we already know is a stud head coach, especially on the defensive side of the football again. But then you go to his offensive side, and then Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are just chilling right there. I mean, that's as reliable as it can be. And then you have Mike McDaniels, who we all know is a pretty good coach in the NFL, especially seeing that, he's one of the more enjoyable coaches to watch. Like I love watching Mike McDaniels. I think he's fucking hilarious, but nonetheless, he's still a good coach. Like, he's been able to go ahead and get a lot out of that Miami roster and make them a viable team in the NFL, to where you can't just walk into a game against them and automatically think you're gonna win. Like, unless you at the time are like the number 1 or 2 team in football, unquestionably, Miami is still one of those teams that every franchise needs to watch out for. And then, of course, the Jets. What else can I say about them? Now, when we go ahead and we look into what these teams did last season, the Bills went 13-3, the Dolphins went 9-8, Patriots went 8-9, and the Jets went 7-10. So at minimum, I'm gonna have the Jets going at least 10-7 next year, maybe 11-6. I think that with Aaron Rodgers having those good quality weapons around him, with Hall coming back at the running back position, and that defense that you have that's already gone ahead and looked at as a playoff style defense, I'm gonna go ahead and honestly just say that they either flip it to 10-7 or 11-6. That's what I'm gonna have them at. The Patriots are a little bit more of a concern for me, still being my favorite team, but in every division, one team has to do bad. And if I had to go ahead and pick, it's either going to be the Dolphins or the Patriots, and I'm more so leaning to the Patriots because I don't necessarily believe in Mac Jones. That's just me personally. Like, I know, especially as a New England fan, like I'm supposed to be hoping that Mac Jones plays to the best of his ability. I'm supposed to hope that, he's supposed to be our godsend and lead us to more Super Bowls like Tom did, but I'm just not a Mac Jones believer. Like, in my opinion, I could care less about Mac Jones Pro Bowl, and I personally think that he's trash. That's me being biased though. Like, realistically, he's not trash. He made a Pro Bowl. He puts up decent numbers. His completion percentage is in the higher 60s. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put a little bit of respect on his name in a reality aspect, but on a personal level, Mac Jones is a bum to me. Like, I think he's a little crybaby. He's like a little child on the field stuck in a grown ass man's body. So to me, it's just not something that I necessarily like. I don't like him as my team's QB, and I say my team because it's my favorite team. I'm not Robert Kraft. I don't own him, but that's the end of the day. I'm gonna claim that it was my team. I was born and raised in New England, so I'm just gonna rock with him. And then you got the Dolphins. The Dolphins went 9-8 last year. Tua was in and out of the roster due to injuries. If that happens to him again this year, honestly, I think he'll probably retire. If he keeps getting hurt, especially towards his head, because he's already had a few concussions, that dude's going to retire, and he's going to retire early out of just health reasons, because at the end of the day, I think he should realize that his well-being into his 40s, 50s, 60s, hopefully he lives a long life, is way more important than just going ahead and playing a few games in the NFL right now. Tua, I got a love-hate relationship with Tua because I really liked him in high school. I watched him in the Elite 11 when he won the MVP for it, and then I watched him go into Alabama, and I thought he was an absolute dog, and, I loved watching him play, especially going ahead and putting up the numbers that he did. He was definitely, arguably at the time, one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks to ever play for Alabama under Nick Saban. Of course, now we all know that that's Bryce Young, but Tua now is in a situation where, he's very inconsistent, not only play-wise, but availability-wise, and, it's not his fault that he gets hurt, but at the end of the day, availability is one of the best, if not the best abilities in all of sports, not even just football, and he's not really available like the Dolphins would want him to be, or like they even need him to be, especially if it's in that territory where he might pull an Andrew Luck and end up retiring a bit early. And then you got the giant, the elephant in the room, and that's the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills from top to bottom are probably the most complete roster in this division and maybe in all of football, because when you think about it, look at their defensive line: Ed Oliver, Von Miller. Look at that secondary: Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. Micah Hyde is probably a top 2 or 3 free safety or strong safety, and then the same thing for Jordan Poyer. I think Jordan Poyer's in that 5 to 10 range at his position. And then, of course, you got a lockdown secondary with your corners. You got Tre'Davious White out there. I don't know who's there. I think it's Kaiir Elam or something like that. I could have totally messed that up. But defense, lockdown, And then I would say the weakest part of the Bills franchise is either going to be their spotty offensive line or their linebacking core. I would probably go ahead and lean more towards the offensive line because they really haven't spent much money or got many good draft picks on the offensive line. But then, Josh Allen makes up for it, especially having targets like Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs to throw to. The running game is a little bit weak. Devin Singletary really isn't a premier back in the NFL. He's a good utility back in my perspective, but he's more so like a mid to low tier kind of running back who, if has a great season for him, he'll be 1,000-yard rusher. That's a great season for him, though. That's, for other guys, that's like a normal season, but for him, that's a great season. We're not saying that he's like Nick Chubb or Jonathan Taylor. It's Devin Singletary, respectable back, but he's not an all-star or a Pro Bowler, an All-Pro. He's not in that realm at all. What I think it's going to end up coming down to, when the season is kind of coming all said and done and we go into postseason time, I think that for sure Bills and Jets are going to make the playoffs, and there is a wild possibility, but it's still possible that a third team from the AFC East makes its way into the playoffs through the wild card. If I had to go ahead and pick the team that would probably make the playoffs, I would probably go ahead and lean more towards the Patriots, because I feel like Tua's availability is a big concern, and you need your starting QB there to have the best shot at making the playoffs. And we don't know what his availability come next season is. Mac Jones is a little bit more, available. He definitely has gotten hurt a lot less in the NFL compared to Tua Tagovailoa. But at the end of the day, because of that availability and because I know Mac Jones is a little bit more of an accurate passer than Tua, I'm going to go ahead and give the nod to, quality coaching, reliability from Bill Belichick, and the fact that Bill O'Brien now will come into that franchise, bring in a good offensive system to communicate with Mac Jones and hopefully lean the franchise into the right direction. If a third team was to go ahead and make it, I would pick the Patriots. But at the end of the day, realistically, I think it's just going to be, the Jets and the Bills who go ahead and make it. Bills are probably going to get the 1 seed in the division, and I don't know, either the Bengals or Kansas City will probably get the first round bye and have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. But nonetheless, when it's all said and done, I think this is a much more reasonable way to think about the division. The division is definitely going to be great. When you look at the slate of NFL games next year in regards to just the AFC battles, I think, the divisions that we have between the West and the East are going to make the AFC easily the toughest conference in football, with those two divisions being the premier ones. I think in just totality for the NFL, probably most of our good games are going to come from those two divisions with the West and the East. I would hope, just throwing a shot in the dark, that the Patriots somehow slip their way into the playoffs and then make a splash. I don't really see it happening, but, dude can only be hopeful. But on that note, as a hopeful Patriots fan, I'm going to let y'all go. Thank y'all for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the podcast. Appreciate y'all. Deuces.